Hello and welcome once again to the Windy City's finest, on location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this is
Eric Dyck.
Yes, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with us and spend your time and energy with us. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thanks for having me.
And our first segment is going to be just some icebreaker games. We got 3 of them lined up, and I'm super excited to dive in. So I think let's just dive in.
Okay.
Our first segment is our trivia questions about Lethbridge in the spirit of being on location here.
Are you from Lethbridge?
I am not from
here?
Lethbridge.
No, I didn't either. So.
Oh, okay,
All
interesting.
Right.
Okay,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So our first question for you is: the first mayor of Lethbridge was A. Sir Alexander Galt, B. William Henderson, C. Charles Alexander McGrath, or D. Nicholas Sharon?
Galt, I don't think I ever actually set foot here.
Right.
I think they were just kissing up to him with the naming everything Galt, because he was the one funding all the coal mining.
Right.
The second one was?
William Henderson.
Okay, so he wasn't the first. He was the one that died while they were making the slough all pretty, and so then they named it after him. He died in his office.
Oh my gosh.
Who was number 3? Or
Number 3 was Charles Alexander McGrath.
I'm going to say that one because I don't know anything about him, and I know that Nicholas Sharon was just a guy that was hanging out, digging coal and running the ferry over the river.
Right on.
And he drowned in the Old Man River, so we named a swimming pool after him.
As you do, as you do. Oh my gosh, first things first, I love all those tidbits. Thank you so much for sharing those. And yeah, you got it right.
That's what you get with me. I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize for that. That's
so am
awesome.
I right?
You were right.
Hey.
Yeah, Charles Alexander McGrath.
All right.
Fantastic. I'm going to throw it to you to read your question for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll do the first one.
Oh, intense.
And I might just take a second here. I'm just going to fix your microphone.
Oh, please.
Just because it fell off.
Oh, no.
We want to be able to hear you. There we go.
Okay. Much better.
So we'll read the first
All
one.
right.
And this is trivia about Mac for me.
That you don't know.
That I do not.
That this
Well,
is happening.
in theory, hopefully I do. But
Or that you don't know. Okay. You know what the question is. All right. Mac has been involved with many events at CASA over the years in different roles. The first was A, as an MC for the Allied Arts Council's 60th anniversary, B, as a circus artist for the Soar Cabaret, C, as an art model for CASA's drawing classes, ooh la la, D, as an improv actor with New West Theatre.
Oh, and the question was the first.
The first, yes, first engagement.
I'm going to go with the circus performer.
The circuit, yes.
Yay! I got it right.
Huzzah!
Amazing. Okay.
And so that would have been 10 years ago
10
because
years ago.
CASA just had their 10th anniversary last year.
Oh, right on. Perfect. Well, awesome. I got it right. 1 for 2. Okay. My next question for you is, Lethbridge's motto is A, a place to grow, B, bridging communities, C, the Windy City, or D, gateway to opportunity.
Oh, Lord. Can I hear A again?
A was a place to grow.
That feels like a committee, so I'm going to say A.
A? Unfortunately not.
No.
I think that's
What
one
is
of
it?
the neighboring
It's
communities.
definitely not the Windy City, is it?
It is not the Windy
No.
City, unfortunately. We obviously think it should be. But it was D, gateway to opportunity.
Gateway. Well, all right.
Yeah, adopted in 1907.
Is opportunity east or west? Okay, never mind.
Fantastic. And what was your second
I've got
piece of
another
trivia?
one. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, about Mac. Mac's most recent involvement at CASA was A, as a circus artist for the Upside Down Summer Concerts, B, as an MC for Family Fun Day, C, as an improv actor with New West Theatre, or D, as an art model for CASA's drawing classes, which is the most recent.
The most recent, I think it's either B or D. What were B and D?
B is as an MC for Family Fun Day, so that was in February.
Okay.
D as an art model for CASA's drawing classes, which I believe happen every Thursday.
Every Thursday. Ooh. I'm going to go with D.
The answer is C as an improv actor with New West Theatre.
No. I knew you were doing improv recently, but I also know that he does live modeling. So
And does a lot of things. And
Yes,
so
yeah.
all these would have been good answers because
Yes.
there's a lot going on at CASA.
yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for indulging us there with the trivia. It's always good fun. Our next little game that we're going to play is just this or that. So I'll let you do the honors and pick the first one.
Sure.
Read
And
it
these
out.
aren't Lethbridge specific. They're just
No, they're just people-specific
All right.
things. So I'll let you do the honors and
Into
you can
the
read
circus
it
hat.
out.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Lake or ocean?
Lake. I'll go first. Lake or ocean? I think I would go ocean. I just think there's some like the power of it is just unbelievable, and I feel like I need to respect it. So that's what I would say. What would you say?
So one thing about me is I grew up, born and raised in Alberta, but for about 6-7 years, we ran away to the Maritimes. And so I've actually only been to the East Coast.
Okay.
I've never been to the West Coast, so I've never been to the Pacific.
Okay.
It was amazing, but also super intimidating. So when we lived out there, I would be super careful about reading the tide charts and asking locals about safety and things like that. And they would kind of roll their eyes because they're all used to it. But for us, it was kind of, we weren't as used to water trying to kill us as being on the prairies.
Totally. Yeah. Landlocked. Alberta.
So I will say lake, because the ocean's super scary. My most memorable experience on a lake was making chili in the frost on the rocks of Lake Superior and getting into space. Like those lakes, you can't even see across them. So they are a much more chill ocean as far as I was concerned.
Right. Yeah. Maybe not trying to kill you as much.
Right.
Perfect.
Well,
That's what we
Edmund
like.
Fitzgerald and all that, but all right.
Right. Right on. Very cool. Okay. Okay. I'll pick the next one here. Let's see what we get. Whoop. Ski or snowboard?
No.
Neither. Is there a reason?
I'm going to say much true respect for the mountains than to, no. No.
Yeah. That's totally fair. Yeah. I mean,
I don't go out of my way to go downhill quickly in any means.
that's fair. And I'm sure there's many people in the same boat as you.
That said, cross-country skiing is maybe something I should consider because there's a real community for it in southern Alberta.
Yeah.
And that I've been watching from afar and admiring, but I haven't gotten involved.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday. I know for myself, I think that being from the UK, we don't have any mountains in the UK. So when we came here, they really intrigued me, and I will never forget my first experience going up one with my friends and coming down it on skis. Yeah, it was amazing.
And are you talking about the Rockies, like the real mountain? Okay, wow, that would be wild.
Yeah, it was great, and I don't get to do it very much, but I would probably snowboard because my brother snowboards.
Oh, okay.
So getting to spend time with him on mountains, that's just like a crazy thing that we humans can do. So yeah. I'll let you do the honor.
Another
Pick another one.
What do I do if it's blank? Oh, no, wait, we're good. Cats or dogs?
Cats or dogs? Oh my gosh. They're both so cute.
Way to alienate half of your audience.
Yeah. I think that I would love a dog just because my mom was such a dog person.
Meaning that you had them growing up or not?
I didn't. No.
You didn't?
The dog that she had died before my brother and I were born, and then she didn't have another one. But I really want to be able to spend the time and energy with them to like train them properly and give them everything they need, which is everything in the world. So I would say dogs solely for that reason. How about yourself?
I maintain a purely professional relationship with cats. So some people know me as the cartoonist in town. Some people know me as the guy who draws the cats at Analog Books. And so Hugo and Copper are my reluctant muses. We don't get along that well, but I've been creating all their merch and doing portraits of them and everything for the bookstore. And that's probably the closest I've worked with any cats in my whole life. A lot of folks know me from around town as the Greyhound guy. So we have 2 retired racing greyhounds who very delicately walk around London Road. And so a lot of folks they're more famous than I am in a lot of ways.
Always. They always are, right?
Yeah. It's always been dogs for me. Didn't have any growing up, but I draw and work from home, and they're pretty good buddies to have around, and they get me outside and socializing with people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. I'm going to pick one last one, and we'll see what we get, and then we'll move on. Switch song during or after? Do you like to, like, if you're in the car and you're listening to a song, are you the person to like keep switching before the song is finished? Or do you wait until the song is finished, even if it's not your favorite song?
If the song's not working, I'll kick it.
Yeah.
That said, I don't even like it when the people on the radio talk over the music.
Right.
Like CQA keeps doing the weather over top of somebody's song. That always weirds me out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I defer respectfully to the music and let those songs finish, unless it's just not working and it's going to make me fall asleep in the car or something.
Right.
Then it's got to go.
Yeah, it's gotta go. Yeah.
Is that the answer? Is that what you're looking? Really?
Totally.
Switching.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. I think
Nobody's ever asked me that before.
that's
Congratulations.
totally fair. I think for myself, I think it would be, oh gosh. Yeah, if it's my music, I think I usually just let it finish.
Okay.
So like afterwards, I would be like, okay, I need something different, like a different vibe, and then I would try and find it. But
Okay. What about when you're alone versus inflicting your music on somebody else?
So like if I'm alone listening to
Yeah.
music, I guess I would switch it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's dependent on the vibe of the people.
Alone, I'm more likely to let it play out. With other people, I'm, especially if it's going to some goofy, weird, abstract guitar solo or something,
Right.
I'm going to be more sensitive to the
Right.
folks around me, and I would switch it up.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right.
And that's a great addition to that, actually. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Alone versus, with people. Interesting. Okay, let's move swiftly along to our next little game here, Tumbling Towers. So each block corresponds to a question. I have the questions right here. And just as a
Oh my goodness.
just as a nice reminder,
Yeah. Okay. So there's a number, and then
we'll just get through however many we get through. We can't pick from the top three, and whichever block you pull, you have to put back on the top.
All right.
I'll let you do the honors. No pressure. It hasn't fallen yet, but we are waiting for that day.
I don't think I've ever played Tumbling Towers before. This is very intimidating.
So you'll either be really good or it'll fall. But I believe in you.
Do I commit if it's not working out?
I wouldn't. I would go somewhere else. Yeah, usually
Right
you can
beside.
find one
All
that's
right.
loose. Yeah. 37. Awesome. And then that just goes back on the top. You're gonna
Doesn't matter
alternate
where.
pattern. Perfect. 37. What's one thing you're always misplacing?
My drawing glove.
Drawing glove?
When I draw digitally, I do wear an anti-fouling glove so that my stylus is the only thing interacting with the digital surface.
Right.
But usually your hand sticks, or I don't want it to think my hand is drawing when it should be the stylus. So I wear a dorky little glove, and always trying to figure out where I put those things down. So I bought 10 of them.
Oh, amazing. There you go.
Now they're everywhere.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about it. Perfect. For myself, like sometimes my phone, sometimes I like to just leave it and then forget about it. I'm
But
not sure
then-
what else. Yeah, but then I need it at some point, inevitably. Otherwise, I'm not sure what else I lose. I'll think about that more. But we'll keep moving on. My turn. Let's see if I can find one that's loose. Right there. Rah.
Jealous.
Yeah. Number 5 is, what was your very first job?
I have to think about that. I think it was a swimming instructor.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And what brought you to that?
It was the only skill set that I had that people were offering money for
Oh,
at
there
the
you
time.
go. Yeah.
I think, so I grew up in a very close-knit church, close-knit in that everybody else stay away. So right away, as soon as you were old enough, you were supposed to pay the indoctrination forward. And so you were teaching Sunday school classes very, very young. And so I was very comfortable already in that setting. And that does also lead into some of the drawing work that I do. But so just to be in front of a group of kids and telling them what to do came fairly easily to me because
Yeah.
I'd been in it so young.
Yeah.
And so that was something that a lot of other people wouldn't have been comfortable doing, and I could jump into it.
Nice.
Not that I particularly cared about swimming that much, but
Yeah. And with the ocean and the lakes, I imagine there's
Yes.
some correlation there. But yeah. Great. We'll do maybe one or two more.
Sure.
We'll see
Okay.
how long it takes, and then we'll wrap up.
no, not happy. Oh, come on. You found one so fast.
I know. Just gotta try.
Uh-huh,
Oh, there you go.
Come on. It's 8.
Number
Oh,
8.
wait. Do we ask it if it falls?
Yes. What's the last picture that you took?
That I took?
Yeah. Was it of your dog?
Probably of my dog walking to let my wife know that we did actually get out to walk and that the dogs weren't having a tantrum.
Right. Got to report in. Yeah. And getting outside, that's amazing. Yeah. That sounds about right for the doggos. Nice. Last picture that I took, it would have been of the internet password and stuff. So
Utilitarian.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. I'll do one more, and then that's probably all the time.
If you can find
If
one.
I can find one.
Oh,
There we go.
you're way better at this.
I have practice. It's okay. Number 54.
Page 2.
Yeah, the very last one. What's one act of kindness we should all do more of?
Ooh. Saying hello and making eye contact.
Nice. And what kind of leads you to say that? Like,
It is a spark between two people that really can't happen any other way. As someone who might look like he's very outgoing and am not, that's one way that I can deliberately just chip away at the wall I've built around myself very deliberately to open myself up to other people engaging with me, or to just acknowledge other people are around me and try not to be quite so insular. And that in part because if I'm going to be telling stories about a community I'm in, I need to make myself available and also be friendly and respectful.
totally. And I really appreciate how, the piece that you shared is something that you actually use for yourself to try and engage.
And
connect
it's
with
certainly not my inclination. I just want to
Yeah.
curl up in a ball and
Yeah.
do my own thing, but
Yeah.
that's not always great, and we learned that over the last few years too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great note to end on. Saying hi, making eye contact, and saying hi. That's awesome. That is all the time we have for this segment. So thank you so much for indulging us with our games.
My pleasure.
It's been lovely to get to know you, and I can't wait to hear some more in-depth interview questions with Mac in the next segment. But yeah, this has been the Windy City's Finest, on location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac. I'm Perry.
With Mac and Perry. I'm Mac. He's Perry. And this is
Eric Dyck.
Eric Dyck, swim instructor / cartoonist.
Let's go back to this.
Right. So Eric, we're going to learn all about your art. We have a little piece back here, but we're going to learn all about what you do. So what is your art, Eric?
I am a cartoonist, nonfiction cartoonist and art educator, working here in Lethbridge. And all of the work that I do is hopefully going towards some kind of community communication or helping people understand the place they are a little better.
Yeah. And I'm very familiar with your art. It's all around town, and it's very lovely. Everyone loves it. So, so I guess let's go back to the very beginning,
Okay.
maybe post-swim instructor, I don't know. But when did you first start drawing or being interested in drawing?
Drawing, it's always been. I don't remember before. Okay. It's always been what I was excited about, what I was interested in, what I wanted to get better at. And it's always been kind of how I process things. And so if I had to figure something out, it was always going to be on paper with a pencil. Yeah.
And what do you like about that medium to be?
It's just always been mine. Whether it's because I was grappling with expressing things other ways, or I always like to think of comics as two different literacies, and so there's the verbal or word communication and then the images happening, and I always take things in that way. I think that way and see the world that way, and so it comes out that way as well.
Yeah, so it was very naturally, so it's yours.
Yeah. And so, I mean, with my generation, comics had been around for, pushing 75 years or whatever, and just it was easy for me to find and consume. It maybe wasn't the best quality always that I was getting my hands on, but it was always where I was drawn to. It was always going to be what I was excited about.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite comics growing up?
I didn't have access to a lot of newer stuff, so I was limited to what either was in my extended family or at the library. And growing up in Red Deer, the library was limited to some fairly dusty old tomes. So primarily what I got my hands on was old newspaper comics. So always black and white, usually poorly printed. And so Peanuts primarily, and read a lot of Pogo. I don't know if you're familiar with Pogo by Walt Kelly. It was like a pseudo-political comic strip, but all the words were spoken by talking hillbilly swamp animals. And so he could get away with a lot of stuff that maybe you couldn't have a person saying. Maybe that's what I loved about Peanuts too, because he was dealing with a lot of very grown-up issues, but because the dialogue was coming out of little kids, he could get away with a lot on the page that you maybe couldn't. As I got older, just anything Bill Watterson made. So Calvin and Hobbes, just gobbled up everything.
Yeah. Nice. That's great. And then, like, so you obviously said, drawing was yours when you were growing up, and something it felt like your thing to do. When did you start taking it further? When it started to become more than just something you did as a form of expression, or like more professional, let's say?
That happened fairly quickly, in part because growing up in a church that was very quick to put whatever it is you're good at to work. I got put to work, whether it was doing illustrations for Sunday school or for sermons or things like that, at a weirdly young age. And so that got it in my head very quickly that drawings could have a job to do. For a comic that I did just a couple years ago, I actually went back in the archives and found the first time I taught comics or publicly was getting paid to encourage other people to make comics and draw cartoons was 30 years ago this year. So that's kind of wild.
Yeah, time flies, I guess. Yeah.
So that started very early too, and that's probably came out of that proselytizing kind of environment that I was in. It's tell the good story of cartooning and comics.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Background story on that. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't always positive or encouraged, and so any cartoonist will certainly have stories of drawing comics where they weren't supposed to, be it math class or funerals or whatever. But even furthering education and getting serious about getting better at being an artist was something that was really discouraged. People in the church even came up and told my parents if they let me go to art school that the devil would get me and they'd never get me back. So it was a bit intimidating or even a bit weird to kind of leave my little bubble to go and do that. But art school is not always necessarily the best thing for a cartoonist who is very stuck or very narrow-minded about what they should make and what they should do. And something that I tell my students is to you're in an environment where you're going to pick up all kinds of different skills. Some of them are going to be a good fit for you, some of them aren't, but the cartoonist you are when you get out of that fine arts training is going to be very, very different and very rich compared to before.
Yeah, so how did your art school education change you as a cartoonist?
It's actually got me tapped into the history of making things a little better. So I didn't fully even understand this as a kid or a youth. It wasn't until college that it occurred to me that what I was doing was actually fairly in line with my family. So I'm actually a third generation printer. So my grandfathers, plural, printed small rural Alberta newspapers. So I've been around ink and been around printing presses and all of that for my whole life. My fond smells isn't, a certain kind of soup or pierogies or something. It's solvents and inks, which isn't great, but that's certainly what triggers for me nostalgia. So my dad was a pre-pressman for 35, 40 years, and I realized after I was well into it that I was actually falling pretty well in line with what that was. So my schooling in art school is actually printmaking, and particularly relief printmaking, so carving woodcuts and wood engravings.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't use that in cartoons, or?
I absolutely have
Yeah, okay.
for years, and there's historical precedent for it. So if you wanted pictures in your newspaper from the 1880s to the 1960s, you would need some kind of block to print it off of, and so you would order from a catalog, and so somewhere there would be artists in a warehouse cranking out these drawings or cartoon characters, or pictures of sewing machines, whatever, and they would get engraved into blocks that would then get shipped all over North America to be printed alongside type in the newspaper. And so that, for me, I've been trying to reconnect with a lot of that. Printmaking was absolutely a connection for me that I was just starting to understand as a student. Oddly, August this year, we welcomed a bouncing baby printing press into our home. Okay. And so there I took over my mentor's Vandercook SP15, 80-year-old printing press, and am printing some of my grandfather's old blocks off of it, but I'm also creating new artwork going on it. And so, of course, being me, it's going to be cartoony. And so, yeah, reconnecting with that 200-year-old printing method. A lot of the work I do is digital. A lot of the work is for sharing online, but it's awfully good to reconnect with the analog stuff too.
Yeah, what's that experience like for you to go more analog?
It's always more tactile. It's always, sincere is not the right word, but it always feels more direct and rewarding. And that's something in my cartooning classes that I teach is analog only. Some kids are already so immersed in their devices that they create their art on there, but there's no tactile feedback. There's no getting to know the surface of the paper or getting to know the tools in quite the same way. A lot of drawing programs ape or mimic what it's like to draw analog, and so to better understand those tools, having analog experiences drawing, I find is really, really beneficial for a student. Even if their whole world, and if they get involved professionally, chances are it's going to be drawing on a glass screen with a stylus. And so it's a really good grounding and a really good foundation to build up on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting, yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, so not that there has to be a outcome for it, but with this printing press that you now have, like, are you intending to print things to sell, or is it just?
I already
am. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the conditions of taking over the printing press from Jim Westergaard in Red Deer was I had to rename the press. And so it is newly christened the Slew Press in honor of the Slaughterhouse Slew comics that I've been making. And so I've been printing up old image blocks from that would have been used in the Delia Times newspaper in the 1920s and 30s. And so I've been making a line of greeting cards available in town, and people are really enjoying them already. And they're beautiful. Like they're cut by other people. These aren't artworks that I've made, but they're just blocks that I rescued from my grandpa's barn, and they are just intricate and beautiful. And so old kerosene tractors and garments of clothing, and even comic voice bubble images used for advertising back in those days. A lot of newspapers are digitized. I can go and chase and find the actual instance of where they were printed, except Delia Times newspaper has never been digitized. So if anyone out there has copies of the Delia Times from 1925 to 1945, I would absolutely love to see them. You probably aren't out there. Surprise me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm assuming it would have a totally different feel being from that time period.
It's very much stylistically going to feel like the 20s and 30s, but also the limitations of how images could be created, but also reproduced are going to be quite different. And so you would have seen styles change quite a bit in the 1950s and 60s, just because with offset lithography or even photo engraving, you suddenly had way more ability to have different image types and styles print nicely in the paper, so to speak. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Just have one quick technical question about these. So there's these they're like wooden blocks.
To raise the image up to type high, you would need a piece of wood so that the pictures and the words are all at the same height. So you would order from a catalog and you get a little slip of lead or copper. And so mine about half and half. I have about 50 or so blocks. And so you would have to nail that little slip of metal onto a piece of wood to bring it up to the same height as the type. They wouldn't be shipping blocks of wood around. Okay. Yeah, so you'd order from a catalog and get your little slip of metal.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love how you're bringing that.
Just getting going with it, or I would have happily invited you to my home to see it. Let's maybe reschedule a year from now when I have my act together.
There we go. Sounds good. No, that's awesome. Oh, that's really interesting.
So that's a new development that is very much in line with the last 25 years of what I've been doing anyways. It's not a huge leap. It's just weird and wonderful.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. Another part of like your artwork that if you notice around town, like it's very community orientated, right? It's all about Lethbridge and Lethbridge people and stuff. And I'm just curious what interests or inspires you about Lethbridge?
The interest is anywhere I am. And so it's not unusual for me to get invited somewhere and then to produce similarly themed artwork about that space. It happened when we ran away from Calgary during the oil boom in the early aughts. And I found myself living in New Brunswick and was blown away at how completely foreign and different everything there was. And I process things by drawing comics or writing stories and drawing pictures about it. And that happened to be just almost to the month when Facebook blew up in Canada. And so I was very easily sharing these comics with family back home to tell them about all the goofy things this prairie boy was experiencing. And because of social media being the way it was, other people started sharing it, and eventually locals started seeing it. And suddenly, not only was I getting to document these experiences and try to figure them out, but I was getting locals coming, hey, Alberta boy, come see this. You come check out this thing, and I would get invited to see things that I never would have had opportunity on my own. But even to be doing a comic as simple as how maple syrup really works and why the different grades and colors, what they really mean, that was something that was completely other to me. And for me to visually was the best way to try and depict some of that stuff. And so it could be as basic as that, as just trying to get my head around this very Canadian thing, or this thing that I'd only ever seen on Sesame Street, and actually got to do it and see it. And then, the producer would get all excited that I didn't know what the stuff was, and I'd get to see behind the scenes and that kind of thing. And so those stories just became the things I was most excited about.
Yeah. That would have been out east, obviously, with the maple syrup.
Out in New Brunswick.
And then I guess, how do you kind of, with a topic like that, like you have those interesting facts, the process. I guess, like, how do you form a story around that?
Usually it is, I love science communication, and I love, we call them explainer comics. And so nonfiction comics, but they're often breaking between what you consider a narrative and explainer graphics, or lots of little arrows and labels and things exploding apart so you can see the inside to help better understand something. But especially because I was starting to build connections in that new home, the people telling me the stories quickly overtook it, because it was them, and the story from their perspective became more important than just I didn't know what it was. And so that was maybe easy to cultivate over there, because between language differences and food, history, culture and history, when we found out it was time to move back to Alberta, I wasn't sure that I would be able to have that same spark, or feel like I was looking at something other. And then because it's Southern Alberta, and I did not live in Southern Alberta, and there's rattlesnakes, and I have had no problem finding things that are weird and wonderful here that I didn't know anything about. That has not been a problem.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah. I guess, maybe tell me a little more about that, because in the description of your comic, which we'll get to, it talks about how it's exploring the adventures that you go on where you are, as you've described. Do you have maybe one thing you can think of with like Lethbridge, maybe when you first moved here, or otherwise that was an adventure you went on that you made into a comic?
Yeah. Well, even the things that excited me in out east were often things that people who grew up there took for granted. So oddly, I was the one taking some locals out to the sugar bush because they had never been. The thing that I found so amazing right in their own backyard. Well, I wanted to know what those things were in Lethbridge, and often something as simple as why is it windy in Lethbridge, I was not getting any good answers from locals. It's windy here because it's windy in Pincher Creek was not a good answer. So I ended up having to reach out to Environment Canada and talk to folks and find out what it is about the location of Lethbridge and how our mountains are different from the mountains further north. That tends to mean that it's sunnier, but also much stronger, more violent winds. And so for the guy from away to be digging in, finding out this information and then sharing it with all the locals, I always find goofy and weird. And so often that's going to be something where my attention goes. And you get something even like rattlesnakes that locals are aware of. I know locals who've been here for 75 years and have never actually seen a rattlesnake in person, but boy, do they get upset when you start talking about them, because just in their minds, they've been this horrible thing that you never ever want to encounter. And the idea of me going out to find them on purpose is super weird, or the idea that there's a hotline that you can call and somebody's gonna come and remove it from your garden. All kinds of things like that that lots of locals didn't appreciate or understand, and they're learning about it from someone from away. I always get a big kick out of it.
No, absolutely, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I think we naturally just take our surroundings for granted. And
maybe we don't know that it's weird and really different, and
Yeah, it makes sense that someone coming from away or, coming to a different part of the province would appreciate that more.
And to put myself in a position where I'm seeing things that are new or amazing, and to put myself in a place where there's 11-foot snowdrifts, and to come to the heart of Chinook country was certainly jarring. And so obviously one of the first things I had to do is find out what are Chinooks, and why are they happening, and why is it here?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And like that, it also interests me, that science communication piece too, right? Was that always something that you were interested in?
Consuming. So that if there was a comic book like that that I could get my hands on, that's absolutely, I would be way more interested in that than a fiction comic. But even just the idea of sharing understanding or getting to know the community that I'm in better, more often than not, it's going to get down to some of the climate or physics or those sorts of things. I hope that I approach history in kind of the same way, where I'm if I'm telling a historical story or I'm digging into something that has some information like that, as I would if I was looking into science stuff, I'm going to find the people that know what they're talking about, but also find this site. So my comics are fairly well known for having citations and footnotes and things like that, which might seem like overkill, but I like to have receipts.
Yeah, I assume a certain audience would appreciate that.
Yeah. And as the work that I do has changed over the last 10 years, and as it's becoming more political and looking at social things going on in the community, having receipts is really important, and being able to back up the things that you're sharing with people, information from people who know what they're doing. They're not just a cartoonist who's parachuting in and trying to figure things out.
That makes sense, yeah. I guess that's a good transition, and maybe talk more about your comic, The Slaughterhouse Slough, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about
Were you familiar with the word slough? Had you heard that before?
Well, tell me about that.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me about the slough.
So slough is the word that I grew up with in central Alberta, and it just means a gross bog or swampy area in a pasture. But it has all kinds of other pronunciations, slough, slow, and slough. So can create some confusion, but for prairie folk, that most of them know it as the gross little wetland thing in a pasture. Slaughterhouse Slough isn't my word. It's actually the word for, it was the first settler name for the area that we know as Henderson Lake now. So before Lethbridge was big enough to be across the railway tracks out that way, it was the only place to go and cool down in hot July and August. And so people would walk down 7th Avenue South and actually leave the city, as it was, to go out to Slaughterhouse Slough. It was a sizable slough with fairly accessible edges at the base of the Pat Burns Slaughterhouse. So there was some runoff The water was super gross, and people got really sick and covered in lesions and leeches. And when they figured out how to test water, they built a swimming pool.
Okay. Now you know.
That's a story that a lot of people growing up here had no idea, and a lot of people who enjoy that park have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know why tourism hasn't embraced a gross, disgusting water, slimy. Yeah, that's the kind of history that I enjoy, and even just naming the comic strip after that was just sort of here's where we're going with the kind of stories that I'm going to be excited about and interested in.
No, that makes total sense given what I know about you now. Yeah.
And having been here for 10 years now, I am no longer having to explain that name very much. The word has gotten out, we'll put it that way. So when I first started doing school visits and things like that in town here, that would often be a story that the teacher would want me to share. And now I have kids telling me that story that I've never met before.
Great.
I think that's great.
That is great. Yeah. It's good to know that you're
Explaining to me where the name
Right, yeah.
comes from, and I love
This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, tell me more about the comic. So what actually led to you starting the Slaughterhouse?
So I was drawing a sporadically weekly, monthly comic strip for the time that I was out east. And I maintained that as we'd cross the country in the car, and so was doing a few comics on the road. And then when we rolled into town, just renamed the comic and reached out to everybody, and Twitter was starting to get way more popular at that point than Facebook, and Lethbridge had a very strong Twitter community. And this had never happened before moving to a new place or a new city, but I had people calling out to me or saying, hey, you're the cartoonist, the first week that I was here, which I think Lethbridge is just full of nerds and people who are really excited about that stuff. So I was feeling very welcomed very quickly when we rolled into town here. And it wasn't very long before people were bringing me stories that were either particular to their family or were sharing experiences that I wouldn't have had access as just a stranger because they were seeing how I was treating stories or seeing how I was talking about other people in the community. They felt like I was an okay person to come talk to. And that also let me know that I was on constantly and that people were absolutely aware of how I conduct myself in the city and how I behave, and that someone might have known about me for 5 years and they finally bring me something that they would like me to look at or talk about, and that's pretty special. That hasn't happened before Lethbridge. Cool. As time went on and we found ourselves in a pandemic and big government changes, I've always loved political cartooning. That for me is should be the ultimate explainer comic, is looking at what's happening to our community right now and being able to break that down and explain it with hopefully some helpful illustrations that make it all a bit easier to understand. That has never been financially viable though, because in my lifetime anyways, newspapers have been in trouble, and the first thing to go is the editorial cartoonist. Editorial cartoonist with a full-time job is almost non-existent at this point. And so as much as I would have loved to do more of that, I did a little bit of it, again, just for me to figure things out. But around the time of the pandemic is when I found, for myself anyways, subscription or micropayments started to take off. And so my fan base, which admittedly I'd built up, it'd been a few years in Lethbridge, but now I was bringing in enough with subscriptions, and I was hearing from the fans that they wanted more of the political stuff because it was getting really scary and intense. But for the first time, I could actually work on those kinds of comics, and I was getting enough income from it that it was feasible, and that had never happened before either. So a lot of the comics have been much more politically minded, as everyone has become a little more politically engaged over the last 5 years. I'm excited about that just because that's work that I've always really liked to do. And I also know that because of all the community engagement that I've had experienced and the ways that I've tried to learn about the communities that I'm in a little better, I certainly feel like I have a toolkit of telling stories and drawing pictures that serve those ideas and serve that political communication, if we want to call it, better than I could have if this had started happening 10 years ago. I'm such a different cartoonist now, and much more mindful of the people around me and the stories that they're sharing. That I hope that's very much a part of the comics that I'm telling now, even if they are more politically minded.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, yeah. And I'm imagining that would help the reach as well. People might be more receptive. It's a political cartoon that, if you're
yes
aware,
and no.
maybe, yeah.
We've had our tires slashed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's the feedback has been incredible, in part because lots of folks are seeing this kind of thing, comics being shown more accessible in the States and about those politics. Maybe they're sharing them as memes, but what they're sharing quite often is basically a political cartoon. And so there's certainly been folks rekindling their love of that medium after just being part of my evolution as a cartoonist in this city. And I'm getting people who are telling me that they're now seeking out, all the big hitters, Michael Diatter and all the famous people in Canada who are still trying to figure out a way to make it in that world. Being a part of the Canadian Association of Cartoonists has been important for me because I'm finding other people who maybe work on a very niche, weird mode and level that I am. And I'm hoping the cartooning community that I foster here as well is a lot like the music community, where there's a lot of collaboration and people helping each other out. And so-and-so worked on their project, and then they came and worked on the first person's project. And I want cartooning to be like that, and it isn't always. And so that's the kind of vibe that I'm hoping is starting to take root here in Lethbridge. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're making progress with that?
Absolutely. And so I've been here long enough for that to actually start happening now, where I'm seeing people youth that I've worked with go on to animation careers or on to making graphic novels or going to art school, things like that. And yeah, that's a pretty great cartoonist warm fuzzy.
Oh, I bet, yeah. I do have one question that came to mind when you mentioned the subscription and Patreon things. And yeah, I think that's a big part of art making, right? Is sometimes funding your art and getting paid for it. And as you described, it's not always feasible in certain mediums. Yeah, I'm just curious, just as an open question, like through that process, what have you learned about subscriptions and funding your art?
I've certainly learned that probably not just Lethbridge, but people really like to collect. So for the first years that I was here, I was doing little mini comics, just collecting the comics that had been online for everyone to share, but then putting them in books. And people that I knew from social media who had consumed all of these comics already were coming out and buying the books. And they were just hungry for a way to support the people that were making the things that they like. And that has become much more of an accepted community expression than it has. Like, I've been on Patreon for, 8-9 years, but it's never really taken off. People are starting to look at the reporters they really like, and they're supporting blogs that they really like, the bands that they really like, with subscriptions and micropayments. And they're starting to see cartooning as appropriate for that too.
Yeah, so it's just more of a shift in the culture as well.
Absolutely. And so Scott McLeod was talking about micropayments and supporting cartoonists in this way back in 2003, and that was unheard. Like, no one was comfortable with it. They didn't want to get out their credit card at a farmer's market, never mind. But as the arts are becoming less and less visible and accessible, they want to see them in their feeds. They want them to be upfront, and they know that that's going to mean community support to make that happen.
Nice, yeah, that's good, yeah. And as you also said, kind of as well, you were building that community when you moved here, so
just to be a good citizen and to be a responsible member of the community meant having those positive relationships. Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah, great, amazing. I think we're slowly running out of time here, so I have time for one more question. Something we always try to ask people is, how has your art, your cartooning, changed you as a person?
It has, in part, made me much more responsible. That maybe sounds weird. Cartooning has a long history of being terrible to other people, a long history of trafficking in stereotypes and being used for ill instead of good. And so I have had seen that happen in real time, where someone sees something really hurtful, or they know full well that something they would like is not meant for them and makes itself deliberately express that way. For myself, I've been much more keenly aware of the community that I'm participating in because I've been drawing comics about it, because I've been trying to not be that cartoonist historically, and that's meant that I need to, on a personal level, engage more appropriately with the communities around me.
Great, that's lovely. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been good chatting with you and to learn all about your art, and maybe we'll learn about your swim instruction next time. Yeah. This has been the Windy City's Finest On Location with Mac and Perry. I'm Mac, he's Perry, and this is
Eric Dyck.
We will be right.
Hello and welcome once again to the Windy City's Finest On Location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this is
Eric Dyck.
Thank you so much for being here. I thoroughly enjoyed your conversation with Mac in the previous segment, and I'm super excited to dive into our showcase segment with you. And we're going to utilize the TV monitor back here and dive into this first piece. I think let's just dive right in there. What can you tell me about this piece?
So this was actually commissioned by the Lethbridge Tourism. I don't know their official name.
Sure.
But they were commissioning different artists to do their own take on travel posters. And so for myself, just including all the different kinds of people that you might experience in the city, as well as just having fun visually with things that I think really stand out, whether it's the post office or rattlesnakes, of course, or showy milkweed, things that that weird guy with the bugle on Fifth Ave, all those kinds of things, just kind of a little bit of a celebration of that. But I also always sneak in things, and I just like the idea of the plants and the animals sort of taking the city over, and some of that returning to its original state. I get a kick out of images like that.
Yeah. And then like on a more technical kind of aspect of it, like where would you start with this piece specifically? Do you remember like what you started with or how it kind of came together?
So I went through a lot of the travel posters from the 30s and 40s. I just really liked their balance of the picture and the text and the words. For myself, I knew that I wanted to incorporate things knit together. And so we have buildings and the snakes and the people and public art happening. I wanted all those things to be related to each other somehow, and loving goofy monster movies and things like that, having the snake wrapping around the post office building was a no-brainer. But even playing with the different sizes and scale of things, I was trying to do something that cartooning can do well, which is communicate a lot of different ideas and time spaces within one picture. And the kind of vignette felt like the best way to do that. So the first thing that I probably would have tackled was figuring out each of the different elements and if they would be up close or if they'd be far away, or if I'd sneak them in, like the family taking photos inside the rattlesnake's body there. And the rattlesnakes and the post office, I draw a lot just because I enjoy them, and so I sneak them into any project I can. And so that would I was already quite comfortable with them being the centerpiece of the image.
Very interesting. And I'm curious, like again, more technical. Do you remember how long this would have taken you?
From early sketches to maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And because it was a commission for a committee-based organization, there was lots of waiting time of waiting for things to come back. But the initial sketch would have been, it's funny that you mentioned that now, because I actually had to draw this live for their own TV show podcast thing. So I actually started the first sketch of it on a big piece of paper in front of a camera, and that crystallized a lot of the idea, and I just kept it to what had matched that. I went to early rough sketches after that. The final piece was its own workflow. But it occurs to me now that just because I draw in public a lot, that they wanted that kind of feel, and they wanted visual representation of that. So that would have been the first instance of it. And then from sketch to inking, believe this I would have, but yeah, the time turnaround for it, I would have inked it digitally.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I love that idea of maybe like different iterations of it and kind of changing it slightly over time depending on what it was for.
The more times that you sketch something, the more versions of it, the things that you play around with or change, the better you're going to get to know the balance of those shapes and everything.
Totally.
I know that when I'm working with kids, they see on YouTube somebody that just sits down and the drawing comes out of their pencil. Very few people's brains work that way. They are out there, but for a lot of us, working through the idea over and over and over till we've refined it down to make sure it's doing the work and doing the job that we want it to do. That's not something that comes really easily to kids, and is something that they often have to get a little more comfortable with. And then they end up being a lot happier with the thing they're making. So being put on the spot in front of camera, one thing would have come out, and then I had time to refine and figure out really how I wanted these different elements to sit on the page.
I do want to get to some of your other works, but I was also really curious about that idea of, it sounds like there's this element of like research that goes into your work, and I'm just wondering what else you could share about that, maybe specifically in relation to this?
So there are all kinds of wonderful wildlife photographers in Lethbridge. That's a whole community to itself that you could explore. But because rattlesnakes, this particular species of rattlesnake is really special to Alberta. It's the only part of southern Alberta is the only part where they have as a habitat. I've been smitten with them since we got here, and smitten with the way that people have a weird relationship with them. And that's something, anatomy that's quite foreign to me though. So I'll often be referring to not just beautiful photos taken by some of those great photographers in town, but I'll also head to the university library and find all the dusty, dorky anatomy books that can actually show me why their brow looks the way they do, or why their eyes are on the front or the side of their head, whatever it is. I try to do my homework that way, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I've also found with my audience that if I get something like that wrong, I'm going to get an email from a biologist in southern Alberta who's going to let me know that, no, that's not where crayfish antennae are.
That sounds like a bit of a blessing though, in some
I
ways,
embrace it, absolutely. No, always open to hearing back from folks, and that tells me they're engaged, and that tells me that that folks are reading the comics.
Amazing. Okay, I'm sure I could talk way more about this, but in the interest of time, let's see what we've got next. So this is a part of doing this in public, is that right? Yeah, and I'm just going to throw it back to here. We actually have that kind of right there, is that right?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
So doing live drawing or street art has been part of my practice the whole time I've been in Lethbridge. In part, and maybe I didn't appreciate this fully when I started it, was that's just something a lot of artists are not comfortable with. And just my background and the other kinds of customer service and teaching experiences I've had, that's always been very comfortable for me. I'm not afraid to make a mistake or mess up or whatever in public, and a lot of folks do not have that comfort level, and so I've clued into the fact that that's actually kind of special, and I've been trying to do it more and more. I've been the cartoonist in residence at the University of Lethbridge Art Gallery for a number of years, and that has been not just a great time for me to engage with the public very directly, but also to kind of hone that skill and figure out what's appropriate and what can be accomplished on my little wooden drawing table in front of people like that. So quite often you can see there's other pieces of paper taped to the table where I will be drawing something that is from a conversation that I had half an hour, 45 minutes ago, but I've got little sketch pieces of paper where I'm trying to make eye contact with someone, having a live conversation with them, and then scribbling impressions from that in real time that I'll get to a little bit later that day, that sort of thing. So it can be quite a process.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like juggling almost. Like, what can you tell me about that experience or that process and just splitting your attention in that way between connecting with people and also doing what you love? Is there friction there, or is it like smooth now? Or yeah.
I think a lot of people are hesitant to do it because of the pressure of trying to draw their best, we'll say it that way, and be engaged. And I know that you're going to have to compromise somewhat, but this is also a very dynamic and exciting kind of environment. And so there's going to be a lot of energy in the drawing, even if some of the drawing is a little bit goofy because I'm distracted. Usually, though, it's not a problem because people are so blown away, A, that they're seeing someone make artwork they've seen somewhere, or just to be drawing in front of them, and B, that it's not precious and special and no, you can't look at it till I'm done, or hey, let's have a conversation and maybe something that the two of us come up with will end up on paper. That goes a long ways towards demystifying art making, and that's something that's always been really important to me. And so doing it live in public is part of it, and collaborating with the public in a sense helps to make it less other and magical, and to know that this is okay for you to do too. If this is a way that might be meaningful for you to express yourself, you can see that I'm just sitting here, a normal person just doing it. If with a little practice and a little bit of instruction, this could be you too, kind of thing, that you could document these things. So when you see me drawing in public at my little table like this, and it's just drawings of the people that are around, this would have been, it looks like a farmer's market. So that is a real kid that was standing in front of my table, and those the words are always actual things that were said. Verbatim as best I can. I scribbled things down as they're said as quickly as I can, so that I'm trying to capture the vibe of the feeling of the way it was said, but also to try and be as accurate as I can.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Oh my gosh. I had so many thoughts in there. I guess one of them was, do you ever have do people like join you while you're doing this? Or is it more the conversation?
Some, especially kids, are very insistent that they have a piece of paper and a pencil too, and I will always make room for them at my table. But quite often they are, it's not like, they're feeling like it's a magic trick that I'm doing, and I'm happy to have them stay at my table for a few minutes, and I will talk about what I'm doing. This line's a little bit thicker because I want it to feel heavy, or I'm putting a little bit of texture here because it's feeling a bit light, and that this part of the paper is the picture's getting away from me. I want to make sure it's all tied together. Things like that seem really practical and very matter of fact, and that hopefully is making it a little less unusual to see what I'm doing. Plus, they've got all these pictures as the day progresses where they might see someone they recognize, or they see someone who's had an experience that they relate to, and so then they start talking to other people, or people start texting the drawings. It's happened where I don't know who these people are, but they recognize someone and they text that person who was maybe at the live event an hour ago with this drawing that's a capturing of the moment that they had, the experience that they had. And I'll see that kind of play out like a little conspiracy theory map on social media as these images make their way into the lives of the people who actually had those experiences. It can be pretty wild.
Oh my gosh, amazing. and I also really appreciated what you were saying about kind of demystifying it, and also just that idea of, you shared in our first segment, the icebreaker, that maybe being outgoing and making eye contact and saying hi is maybe not necessarily your comfort zone. What can you tell me about breaking out of your comfort zone like that, and to doing something that people probably wouldn't even dream of in their, It
can be pretty intense, but because that's also how I felt as a kid teaching swimming lessons, or as a kid teaching Sunday school, or whatever it was, that it at least felt normal. And I have to say that the drawing live like this, where the people are engaging with me directly, is so rewarding. And they're going through a moment when they realize that they could learn to draw too. They are going through a moment where they realize that art can be about real things that really happened. They don't always have to be fantastical or maybe, intimidating that way. And they are making connections to someone having experience before them in that same space that they can or can't relate to. It's wild watching people go through that whole kind of range of experiences or emotions.
Yeah.
I've had people stand at that table for 45 minutes, an hour, just to be part of the things that are happening and to see something that they experienced beside me and to see how I interpret it different from how they interpreted it, that sort of thing.
Right.
That reward is enough to get me through the intensity of being engaged on that level. But every good teacher knows how to turn it on at the right time and keep, if shared enthusiasm is very hard to avoid. And so if I'm excited about the story that they're telling, then they'll start to look back at their own story and say, no, this is a good story. This is something worth telling.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see what else we got here.
So chalk art is a big thing that has happened for a while in Southern Alberta. I really enjoy it just because it's a very slow process, and in public events where people actually hang out with me for a little bit, tell me some stories, or I draw something where they're asking, they didn't know that there were scorpions in Lethbridge, or something like that, and then they'll go and participate in whatever that larger event is, music festival or farmers market or whatever. Then they'll come back and they'll see the progress, and they'll know that this part got finished while they were actually with me having a conversation, and then they are connecting to it in a different way that maybe if they'd seen it on social media or just seen still photos, it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. And again, that's also part of demystifying the process. They get to see how I talk through it and think through it, and I carry on full conversations while I do these too, which is weird, but yeah.
And we are running out of time, but I'm curious, like working with chalk, like is it a vastly different experience, or what can you tell me?
Yes, so a lot of chalk artists that you probably see on social media, where they're doing illusions or like perspective things, a lot of them are painters. They are painting with the chalk. And to be clear, I'm cartooning. I'm drawing with the chalk. I'm creating shapes and then filling them in. It's a different approach, but I find just anytime art is in the situation, if I get to draw turkey vultures in the community where the turkey vultures live, and drawing it right on the ground of that community, I get a huge kick out of that, and everything ties together beautifully for me.
Nice. Yeah, great. Thank you for that insight on that slight difference in approach. Maybe is very insightful, and I'm glad we got to mention the turkey vultures.
Oh yes,
yes. I do think that's all the time we have for this. I know that there's much more that we could have gotten to. I think this is a beautiful photo to end off on. Do you have any quick bit to share about
so
this?
this was drawn on the street right outside of the old music conservatory on 5th Avenue. Some people know it as the Spudnuts building, but it had this whole other history as a music studio and a dance studio dating back to 1910 or something like that. And so getting to draw something that would bring attention to that idea right in front of that building, get a huge kick out of, because there's going to be people who live right next to it who had no idea that the building story went back that far, that kind of thing. Just, again, surprise people with the things that are part of their community that have always been there.
I love your attention to like history and how you try and bring that into your artwork and share that with people, because it's something everybody living here, we all are part of that now.
And it's very easy to take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's as good a moment as any to end off on. So thank you so much for your time today. This has been the Windy City's Finest on location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry.